Blog Talk Radio. I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world I'm coming home.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to M&M Missing and Murdered for the week of October the 17th, 2014. My name is Jerry. We welcome you this evening. It's not only for the missing and murdered, but also for those who may be in human trafficking, who are being bullied, those who are being abused, and murdered, to find justice for those families. We are here to serve you in any way that we can. Our Missing and Murder was created by my wife, Jenny. We have two Facebook pages, Missing and Murdered 1 and 2. And we also have our personal Facebook page, which is Jenny and Jerry Boone. You can contact us through those pages anytime. You can also contact us through our M&M email, which is mnmgroupmail@gmail.com. That can be used to contact us for any reason, even if you have information on one of our shows or one of our alerts for the week. You can pass them along. If you don't want to talk to the authorities, you can pass it along to us anonymously in that way. To get started this evening, let's look at our M&M alerts for the week. The first one is Hannah Elizabeth Graham, who's been missing now for about 6 weeks, I believe, or since September the 13th, from Charlottesville, Virginia. We've found out many things over the past few weeks. Hannah was born on February 25th, 1996. She is a white female. Her hair color is brown. Her eye color is blue. She's about 5 feet 11 inches tall, weighs about 130 pounds. We did find out today that the Charlottesville police are getting ready to do some digging where some cadaver dogs had given some possible hits. So that is the latest news that we know of on Hannah Graham. But if you have anything that you could share with the Charlottesville police, they are asking you to pass it along. They have a hotline, which is 434-295-3851 for Hannah Graham, or you can also pass it along to us at mnmgroupmail at gmail.com. Secondly, this evening we would like to focus on Deshad Sage Smith. Deshad was last seen November 20th, 2012, near the Charlottesville Amtrak station. That was on the 500 block of West Main Street at around 6:30 p.m. Deshad is a transgender black male who sometimes dresses like a female. Deshad was last seen wearing a black jacket, dark gray sweatpants, and a black scarf and gray boots. Deshad is 19 years of age. He is 5 foot 11 inches and weighs about 130 pounds. If you have any information on Deshad, the tip line is 434-970-3280. Or again, you can pass it along to us if you'd like, and we'll make sure it gets to the proper authorities through mnmgroupmail@gmail.com. Another one missing this evening is Bonnie Santiago. She was last seen July 12th, 2014 in Albemarle County, Virginia. She's 56 years of age, 5 feet 4 inches tall, 175 pounds, black hair and brown eyes. Bonnie was last seen by her boyfriend at his residence located near the Carter Mountain Orchards in Albemarle County, Virginia at approximately 1 a.m. on 7/12/14. If you have any information about Bonnie's disappearance, please contact the Albemarle County Police Department at 434-977-9041 or again, you can use our M&M group mail at gmail.com. Another this evening is Samantha Ann Clark. Samantha was born on 9/17/92. She has long brown hair, brown eyes with glasses. Her right eyebrow, nose, and tongue has been pierced. She weighs about 145 pounds, 5 feet 1 inch tall. Tattoos, she has several. She has on her right arm her Playboy bunny, on her right ankle a tiger, on her lower back 2 dolphins, her left ankle the word lucky, and her nickname Sam. Samantha Clark vanished sometime after midnight on the night of September the 13th, 2010. She told her 14-year-old brother that she was leaving and she would be home in the morning. Her family reported her missing 2 days later. If you have any information pertaining to Samantha Clark, you're asked to call the Orange County Sheriff's Department at 540-672-1200. And again, you can use our M&M group mail at gmail.com. And finally, this evening, we want to focus upon Hattie Brown. Hattie was last seen on May 16th, 2009. Hattie Brown, age 48, was last seen on Saturday, May the 16th, 2009, at a Sheetz gas station at the intersection of US 58 and 501, just outside of South Boston in Halifax County. A video camera captured Hattie and her car at the gas station at approximately 2:33 a.m., accompanied at the gas station by her nephew, Derek Brown. 8 weeks later, on July 7th, Hattie's 2003 silver Volkswagen Jetta was discovered on private property in the southeast corner of Halifax County. The property owner found the abandoned vehicle behind an old barn and immediately contacted investigators. The Volkswagen Jetta had been destroyed by fire. If you have any information concerning Hattie Brown, you're asked to contact the Virginia State Police Appomattox Division at 1-800-552-0962 or 434-352-7128, or you can contact the Halifax County Sheriff's Office at 434-476-3334, or you can also send any information to us through M&M Group Mail at gmail.com, and we will make sure it gets turned over to the proper authorities. At this time, it is my privilege to be able to turn it over to my lovely wife and creator of M&M Missing and Murdered, Jenny.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our show. Tonight we're going to be talking about a little girl that someone just hit and left on the side of the road, and no one has been brought to justice for this. And I would like to introduce her brother, Brandon Weeks, and her father is also with us. His name is David. Welcome to the show, Brandon.
Thank you, Jen.
Can you kind of just give me a rundown on what happened that day before your sister was killed?
That day before, I went over to a friend's house earlier that day. I kind of don't remember too much. I remember everything after the accident. My dad, would know everything that happened that day and what he was doing. I remember going over to a friend's house, and then he picked me up around 5 o'clock, 5:30. And so I didn't, last time I seen Deidre was that morning, Friday morning.
Right. Does your dad want to give us kind of a little rundown on the day that day before we go into the after?
Yeah. Hi, Jenny. That day when I got home from work, she was watching her little brother all day, and she was such a good babysitter. She loved spending time with her brother, little brother Avery. And so when I got home, she had to go to play practice, and so Brandon wasn't around. He was at his buddy's house, so she asked me. She wanted to ride her bike in. She had a brand new bike that we had just got her. I think it was Christmas or something, and she was a very responsible girl, and she wanted to go. It was a beautiful day. I think it was about 70 degrees, and it was March 24th, and it was a beautiful week. And she was off all week for Easter vacation.
Right. So what kind of practice was she going to?
It was a 4-H play practice. She was in plays and stuff, and she was going to a rehearsal.
Oh, okay. Can you kind of give the people that may be listening kind of a description of her and the bike?
She was a beautiful kid. She really was. She was just a pleasure to be with all the time. She was so equally loved in her school. I mean, it's just really hard to put my finger on. She had character that was never ending, and I'll never forget that.
Right.
Also, I remember too, growing up, me and Deidre were always together. I remember making forts, and you have your sibling squabblings, but it was me and her. It wasn't nothing ever got out of hand. And I always remember being a kid, like thinking like, oh, when I grow up or when I get older, like, oh, well, I'll go over to Deidre's house, or Deidre will come over to my house, and stuff like that. And I always thought about the future and us, being together and growing up together. And she's always there, always with me and the family. So that regard hasn't changed. But it was a great childhood. She was special.
Well, could you tell all the listeners what she looked like and what her bike looked like in case someone saw something that day and it might draw their memory?
Well, when I think about it, when I went down the road, when I went towards her and I was thinking, I think I'll run in there and pick her up. It wasn't dark out, but it was getting to that point, and we were really cautious with our kids and stuff like that. So, and I had no more than got out of the driveway, and I just started to go down the road a little bit, and that's when I seen her bike at first.
And her bike, the description, I thought it was like a turquoise and pink, like Huffy, like a mountain bike. Yeah, that's what I remember. And Deidre was brown hair, long brown hair, or brown eyes.
Beautiful girl.
Very talkative, not shy.
Very popular. Very popular
Friendly.
At school, only because she was such a good kid. I'll never forget one thing. There was a special boy that lived in Vesper, and one time she came home and she was just crying, and it was because these kids were picking on this boy. And he was an older boy, but he was never a problem. He was a nice kid, but I could see right there, I could see that what a special person that she was, because she was crying over this boy that she knew and that had difficulties, learning difficulties. He was, disadvantaged, but she cared for him just just like it was anybody else. And I knew right there that I had something special.
Right. She sounded like she was a really special little girl.
Oh, she was, and you know, sometimes I think it was 6 months after her death, and that why, you know, she was taken, and being a Christian myself, I realized that it was about 6 months after, and it was 64 babies or young kids that were killed in the Oklahoma bombing. And I remember thinking, or just getting like a mental image or message that she was watching those kids that were up in heaven with her.
Wow. Wow.
It's a very special girl.
Oh, yeah, she was. And she has a little sister right now that just carries it on. She is so much like her big sister that she was heaven sent to us. I always loved having a daughter, and you know, I think I was 45 years old when we had Adrian. So it's just a gift of God.
David, I know it might be difficult, but can you look back to that day and tell us what happened concerning Deidre?
Okay. Well, I was actually, where it first started was we had 4 dogs, and I was doing the chores that night. You know, my wife had worked second shift, which was uncommon for her to work that shift, but she had worked second shift that night, so she had left early. And so I was doing the chores of feeding these 4 dogs, and when I just started out, I actually heard the sound down the road, and you know, I thought for just a second, you know, that didn't sound good. But then, we didn't think that things would happen to us like that. We weren't people that stood out. We weren't big political people. We lived in the country. We had our animals and such, and I just didn't think anything like this would happen. So I just kept on going and fed all the dogs and stuff, and then I thought, well, I'm going to go in and pick her up, you know. But still, it wasn't that I was alerted that, you know, I mean, I thought, I go down and check her. I just thought, man, that didn't sound good, you know. So I jumped in my truck and I went out, and as I was going out, we have a horseshoe driveway in our farm, and as I was going out, 2 cars went by. I've kind of got to go up a little hill, so I waited for them to go by, and they were going to the north, and one behind the other, they weren't more than, I know, 3 seconds behind each other. And then once they went by, I didn't think nothing of it. And then I went down the road, and you know, it was shortly down the road that I seen her bike in the middle of the road, and it became very upset and wondering, you know, what's going on. And I remember that we found some kittens next door around this area where her bike was, and I for a second thought that maybe she found some more kittens or something, but I just kept on going. I went down the road, and then I seen her, and she was in the ditch at that time. And I ran up to her, and I think I could pretty much tell that, you know, she was with the Lord at that point. I really did. They can say what I saw, and I don't like to discuss it with any. What I saw, I knew she was gone. Sure. And there was just an urgency to let my wife know what was going on. It was a signal from Deidre. Was like, let mom know what's going on. And also, which is strange, it was it's like she didn't want me to be there too long, because it was like she was saying, you know, Dad, you're going to have, every minute you spend here, you're going to have to live the rest of your life. And so I took care. I remember, you know, when I found her, I went up and I went to the first house, and there was no lights on, or no reaction or anything. So I went to the second house, the farther one north, And thank God the Burkholz family was there. God bless them for being there. And they came out, they dialed 911 and came out and was with Deidre and such, and we got her out of the ditch. I pulled her out of the ditch. She was still in water and stuff, couple inches of water, and at that point I knew I had to get a hold of my wife and let her know what was going on.
So, David, you were the first one at the scene then?
Yes, I was, and there was nobody there. I found her. There was nobody there at all.
Well, actually, according to police documents, Jim Verwink and the striking vehicle were the first one there. And so when Dad found Deidre in the ditch, that's where Jim Verwink left her. And although he unsuccessfully pursued the vehicle, and he had varying stories about summoning help, turning around in the driveway, pursuing the vehicle, you know. And Dad, he 3 seconds apart the vehicles were, not 15 seconds. You know, Jim Verwink wasn't even close enough to get a license plate description or get a positive ID on the car. He changed, maroon, burgundy, silver, two-tone, celebrity. It doesn't add up. So if Jim Verwink seen her, or if I seen that happen, I couldn't leave a little girl in the ditch. And people think, oh, well, you'd be mad if he wouldn't have chased them. Well, good. You know what? You should have stayed with her, because that's what a normal human being would do if you see a little girl laying in a ditch like that. So right there is where
I guess that's our problem too, is that we are not dealing with normal human beings here. We aren't. These people are just
for themselves. They're just to keep themselves going.
Evil.
And don't worry about, sorry about losing your daughter, but I got my buddies to protect, and watch out for yourself.
Yeah, it would take a cold-hearted person to just go away and leave her laying, especially in a ditch of water, for such a sweet child as that.
That's right.
What has happened since the accident, David? Are there? I know. Basically, she was murdered. Hit and run. Nobody's taken claim. No one's turned themselves in. As far as the police, have they been able to do anything?
Well, that is our problem, I guess I would say. First off, I want to say a shout out to the DCI that is investigating this. We just have total confidence in the agent that's doing the investigation. And so we like what they've done and stuff like that, but it was it wasn't even day one. From minute one, it was a cover-up by Brian Illingsworth. The guy, I'm telling you, he was mentally unstable from the very minute. From the very, the very day I ever met him, he came to Deidre's wake, and they were trying to concoct a story that this boy that I used to help coach wrestling and stuff, and this boy that was a kind of a friend of the family, and he felt that really bad, and he laid some flowers down there, and they tried to pin it on him. And Brian Illingsworth came to Deidre's wake. And I never met him before, and when I went to shake his hand, he wouldn't shake my hand. He says, "I'm just here to tell you that if anybody tries to start anything, that we got what's going on and this and that." And he brought up this young man's name. He was 16 years old at the time. And from the very start there, I could tell something was loony about this guy, and I mean loony.
And right there, I think that would be where Brian Illingworth was not agreeing with his own conscience about. We have a lot of questions about where he was that night, why this was not properly investigated. I mean, how much this would bring down the whole Wood County Department if the affiliation between Brian Illingworth and the Verwinks, because if we wanted justice, there would be a lot of people going down and a lot of people that had dirt on other people that were in political positions. And I don't follow politics or, nothing like that. But he was not. That was another evil person. Evil sticks together,
Yep. Evil attracts evil.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And unfortunately, sometimes evil can rub off on good. More often than the other way around. David, at this time we're gonna take our halftime break. We've got a little song here that we usually do halftime, give everybody a chance to catch their breath, and then at that time we'd like to come back and talk to Brandon if we could. Okay.
Too bad.
All right, take a breath, and we'll be back here in just a couple of minutes.
Thank you.
Jerry, this one's a little different because we have something especially for Deidre.
Okay.
Welcome back to M&M Missing and Murdered. I'm Jenny. I would like to bring Brandon on to talk about his sister Deidre, who was hit by a car or whatever, and she was left laying in the ditch and water. And this happened in 1995, and there has nothing been done. No one has come forward. Welcome back to the show, Brandon.
Thank you, Jen.
Can you tell us what was going on when you got back home, sweetie?
When I got back home, I don't remember getting home. I remember probably about 10 minutes before when Dad came home. I was watching Avery. I live in a 2-story house. I was upstairs in my room watching my little brother. I was playing video games, and he was on the floor, and then Dad was outside doing chores, and I was just playing video games, and then it was darker out. I just looked out the window or whatever, and then I heard Dad yell up the stairs. Deidre, and I remember him yelling, and I run to the stairs and remember seeing blood on his shirt. He must have had a lighter shirt on. Deidre's not okay, something like that. And then pretty much after that, I don't remember anything until my grandma come to the house, probably half an hour later, because then Dad I think he went back to the scene, or
I went to the hospital.
Yeah, he went to the I was only 13.
Right.
But when he said that, and I seen the blood on his shirt, like he said, we're just simple people, and you never think something like that will happen. And not only, something for that to happen, but something for that to happen, and the people in power that are supposed to serve and protect the people don't do their job.
Right. The thing that gets me is, how can you leave a little girl laying there, no matter what?
And Jim Burwink was the main eyewitness. At the time, he had 2 children of his own. So, I mean,
in court,
what does that say about his kids? I mean,
and he's the one that left her laying there and just went on, right?
Well, he said he stopped and turned around, and there was somebody coming out to help Deidre, and then he turned around in the driveway, and then he pursued the car, but he could not get close enough to identify the license plate. Well, when Dad was pulling out of the driveway, and I wasn't there pulling out of the driveway, but like Dad said, they were within a couple seconds of each other, and that is from where Deidre was hit and where our house is less than a quarter mile away.
Wow. Let me ask you this. Did he ever come back to the scene or no?
Yes.
This is the good one.
He did come back to the scene. He came back to the scene, first off, in a different car. We have a map that's drawn up of the area. A lot of listeners that aren't familiar with the case, that don't know how close in proximity this is.
Okay.
The Burwinks lived within 3.5 miles of our house on the same road. And we have, there's a map drawn up on Deidre's page that if any listeners are following along, that'll recognize or, see how close, how sloppy the police work was, how deliberate, how they didn't look in the right places, they didn't ask the right people questions. From that night, if there was proper police work, if we didn't have alleged police corruption at the time
in Wood County,
it would have been solved that night. But instead, Jim Verwink brought a different car back to the scene. The car broke down, and he got a ride in the back of a squad car with 2 deputies checking out other witnesses, looking for mud tracks in driveways, riding in the back of the car.
The car had to be towed away from the scene.
Yeah, the car broke down, wouldn't start, had to be towed away. And that was the car.
He admitted that was a different car.
He changed cars because he needed a faster car for the chase. And this is where his story, it all falls apart. Any decent police work or sheriff would realize that his story doesn't add up. But police reports...
So that car that he supposedly broke down in could have been involved in hitting a little girl.
Well, no, see, because when he noticed Deidre being hit, he said he summoned help, turned around, chased the car. Okay, so he went north on our road on Double H, and he went back to just north of his house, and he turned around. Well, on the corner of Tempest Road, he lost the car. Then he goes a little north of his house, turns around, goes into his house, calls 911. And then he says, oh, there's somebody hit a little girl in the ditch in Vesper.
He's just a witness?
Yeah, he's just a witness.
I'm just a witness.
Then he gets in a different car and comes back to the scene, and that car breaks down. And then later on that night, police officers check out that car, and it had damage on the right front side of the car. But it checked out because it was an accident 2 weeks earlier when his wife, or live-in girlfriend at the time, came out and said that it was an accident, and some other police officer corroborated with it or okayed it and said it checked out.
So he lost that first car because he knew he couldn't go back to the accident scene because he knew that there was going to be some kind of evidence they were going to find on that car.
Well, and that's the first thing too. You know, I'll start, square one. Dad pulls out of the driveway. And I know last time we were on the radio, we said Deidre's bike was 264 feet away. When this map was drawn up and we got together and, made sure everything was checked out, her bike was it's 364 yards. It's over 1,000 feet. And it's on the map on Deidre's website. Somebody moved that bike. I don't know why. There's been many witnesses that were never interviewed in a proper time manner.
So the bike was a quarter mile away from where the accident actually happened.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you think it could have been drugged by a car?
And that's, it's...
Yes, there were 2 people in the car, and one of them was holding the bike as they were driving.
Okay.
Because if you see our place, that's about where they let go of the bike, because they saw me coming out of the driveway.
And that's the only reason we think that Jim Verwink even said that he witnessed it or turned around, because Dad seen Jim Verwink look at him when he drove by the house. And Jim Verwink even came up to Dad at Deidre's wake and said, oh, you were the one pulling out of the driveway.
In the truck.
And that's the same wake that their brother Ron couldn't even look anybody in the eyes and had his hands in his pocket. And he was the third brother there that night when Tom Verwink was interviewed over 4 hours later at Jim's place.
In the company of Jim, Tom, and Ron. All were questioned together outside, not in different rooms, all together.
Yep.
They gave their stories.
Yep. All together.
All together.
Yep. All
you
together.
know,
right in the document.
If you ever been, police question anybody, you always hear two guys riding in the car. Okay, you take them. Okay, where were you going? How's it going to Grandma's? Where were you going? Oh, we're going to the bar. Well, not for the Verlinks. They got special treatment that night, and they right from the start, Brian Illingworth, he knew he was affiliated with this allegedly somehow. Where was the sheriff that night? Because in Deidre's case, he was very public about all his statements in the newspaper about Deidre, about the case. A month later, the leads are tapering off. He couldn't want this to go away fast enough. He, like Dad said, he was the one, he couldn't even shake Dad's hand. He had a child, 2 kids of his own. He couldn't even shake Dad's hand. Right there, that's probably, I think, where his, maybe a little bit of his conscience got a hold of him and what he knew.
And ultimately, 2 years later, he has to be taken in for psychiatric care. Almost to the date, 2 years to the date.
Were the authorities there for the funeral service?
No, I wouldn't say that they were. No.
I was going to say, if they just seen the actions of these men, I would think they would be able to see that something was wrong, something wasn't adding up to character.
I called Charles Gertler, and he was the head of the sheriff's committee for Wood County. I called him 3 different times to plead with him that I didn't think that Sheriff Brian Illingsworth was I think he was crazy from day one. I really do. The way he acted, things that he did, and I would call in and complain, and we complained to everybody that we should have had to, and no, nothing was done. It's just they let it go. They let it go.
So they questioned these officers all together?
Yes, they did. These people, yeah.
Yep.
All the brothers.
3 brothers.
Oh, yep.
Okay.
3 out of 4.
Outside.
And that was 11 o'clock that night. Well, that was Tom Verwink's statement. They questioned Jim when he came back to the scene in a different car that broke down. And then he rode in the back, with the deputies. But if I could go over the map and the layout.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. So somebody moved the bike. It was over 1,000 feet. And within that, just less than 2 miles south, would be JoJo's Bar. That's where Tom Verwink said he left there with Roger Yenter at 5 to 5:30. Now, even the bartenders there that were working said, no, he was there till 6. There was other witnesses that said, no, they left at 6. Tom Verwink was still there. In Winch's Oil, that's where Jim Verwink was to sell his car to the Frams. Okay, JoJo's and Winch's, if you look on the map, are within 200, 300, 400 feet apart. They're, city block apart. And this is all within 3 miles of our place. And
1 mile. 1 mile.
Yeah, it was more than that. And within 4 or 5 miles of Verwink's residence. All on the same road. So Jim sells the car at Winch's, looks over at JoJo's, sees his brother leaving the bar, and Tom and Jim have been known to race down Double H before. they have grown up in Cherry and Arpin, and there's lots of people that have witnessed this. Now, in September of '84, there was an accident involving Tom along with another person, and in '95, this person stated that Tom collided with him when Jim and Tom were racing. He further claims that Tom left the scene running, leaving passengers in his vehicle that were injured. Tom and Jim had both been drinking. He also states that during depositions with the insurance companies, Jim Verwink told every lie he could to think of to make the accident look like his fault. Jim was caught in every lie, including lying under oath. And now, maybe that was taken by one of the officers that was the first officer on Deidre's case that had involvement with the Verwinks. So right there, if the Verwinks are affiliated within Wood County in the upper echelon, like with the sheriff, you would want him pulled off the case because he already knows how the Verwinks are acting, that they're known to go around drinking and driving, leaving people running away. I mean, Jim Verwink got busted with coke up in Hurley, Wisconsin, at Ron's over by his cabin. And he gets busted and he gets thrown in the squad car, and he gets out of the squad car and runs down the street. So the first thing they do is they want to run away.
Right. Tom was in a hit and run in a special needs bus about a year after Deidre's accident, and he left that scene too. And they had one of the good police officers from Wood County that wasn't affected by the Verwinks, made him come right back to the scene. He says he had to leave because he cut his forehead or something like that. But he left. He rear-ended a special needs bus.
Yeah. So I mean, their history goes back a while.
Big time.
So I mean, Tom and Jim, they were downtown Vesper. They might have seen each other. They might have not. Jim lives on Double H. Jim says he was going south. Tom says he was out of the area, driving to his Stoltz's house. So there was a discrepancy in how far away Deidre's bike was. So Jim chases the car. Now this is where all the witnesses come into place.
22.
Jim Verwink states that it was a burgundy maroon 4-door intermediate-sized car, possibly a Chevrolet Celebrity, because he is a car dealer and he's confident in his statement. Well, also, if you go down Double H and go northeast, Carl Schonke says he's seen one of the vehicles was a 2-door silver car, and that was the first car. 2 occupants, possibly a Ford Mustang 2 intermediate size. Right after Carl's, to the east of that, when you go north, that's where Jim Verwink lost Deidre's car, off of Tempest Road. And if you look, it's a corner, and you have to turn off of this corner to another corner. And that is where Jim Verwink says he lost the car. And then he proceeds to go north on Double H. He goes past his house, past Green Elm Road, turns around because he thought he seen brake lights, and then he goes back into his house, calls 911, says there's a girl laying in the ditch, changes cars, goes back to the scene. Now there's residents that live off of Tempest Road where he lost the car, where he said he lost the car. Mr. Greenway was there from 6:30 to 7 in the police zone report and says there was no vehicle traffic on Tempest Road during that time. Now the neighbors right across from Jim Verwink said there was numerous cars coming and going at that time, no viable description. Now, that statement wasn't taken until April 11th. The neighbors that lived right across from Jim Verwink, the same place where Tom, Jim, and Ron Verwink were taken the night of Deidre's accident, the neighbors that lived almost directly across from them were not interviewed for over 2 weeks later.
Wow.
And they said there was cars are always shuffling, moving around, but that night they seen 2 cars coming north, pull into the driveway. 1 car went south, 2 cars went north. And then if you follow on Double H, the same road that we live on, Huber residence that lives off the intersection of Double H and N, says he sees a boxy 2-door vehicle, silver or very light in color, not white, driving as fast as it could, as fast as possible. So that's 1 car. So if you're going to get rid of some cars, you don't want to follow each other. You know, you want to split up. And there's been other witnesses, people that live on this road that we've followed. There's been radiator fluid that's been traced to residences. The police never followed up. It's just sloppy police work. I mean, if I have to say a cover-up, it's a cover-up. I mean,
definitely cover-up. Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, the way I look at it, it's no longer an accident being this long and nobody coming forth. To me, it's just plain out murder because they left her.
And that's where our current situation is at. I mean, once the 2 investigators that were doing their job were pulled off the case, then they put Tom Reichert on the case, and he is not. He should. I do not feel confident living in Wood County as him being the sheriff. If ignorance is bliss, that's his slogan. It is such.
It's in heaven, huh?
Because he was lead investigator, and Illingworth must have made a deal with him, allegedly, because now all of Wood County's vehicles, now that he is the sheriff, are serviced at TJ's Auto. That would be Tom Verwink's auto dealership.
Yep.
So, you know, hey, we'll brush this under the rug. Yeah, sorry, a 11-year-old little girl had to get killed. It's just look out for yourself. It's complete evil. And how these people live with themselves and how people feel safe living in a community with them being in a position of power, they should not be in at all. Yeah. There's been a lot regarding Tom Reichert that we're currently dealing with. And he...
nowhere near there.
What's that?
I said, I'm glad we don't live nowhere near there.
Yeah, don't. I would love to move out of the county or move out of the state, but you know what? This is exactly what they don't want. They don't want this to be in public view. They don't want us to talk about it. You know, 4 weeks afterwards, they're saying leads are tapering off. Mom and Dad, you know, all the witnesses are coming together and saying, no, we've seen this. We've seen the cops' descriptions are not adding up. Mom and Dad wanted DCI to step in. DCI, Wood County sent them a statement saying, nope, we've exhausted this case extensively. This is 4 weeks later. You know, that night they pretty much had, there's a statement saying Jim Verwink is ruled out a suspect. He is relaxed in his demeanor, feels eager to cooperate. You know, from that night they had him written off. So right away you could tell that they had it in with the Wood County Sheriff. And they still do have it in with the Wood County Sheriff.
They were the
campaign
manager.
Yeah, and That's why they're servicing their vehicles, their buddies. You see squad cars at their personal residences.
We're Illing's first campaign manager.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's a cover-up.
They're just totally working together, aren't they?
Yeah, and that's just it too. It's the weakest link. You know, we're not going to stand over Ron Verling's deathbed and let him take that to the grave because he was the one at Deidre's wake that couldn't even look Dad or anybody in the eyes because he knew what happened. And there's other witnesses, and it gets really detailed on how what they knew, and they can say, well, leave us alone, stop harassing us because you didn't do it. Okay, you didn't do it, but did you see what happened?
Right.
Well, Jim Verling took a polygraph test, but that was on his request.
Sure.
And also Tom Reichert was the one that formulated.
If I were you guys, I would be hanging around their neck every day.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they don't like. We've had recent protests in front of Jim Verling's business. They did not like that at all. They said we're yelling obscenities and whatever. We had protests in front of Wood County Courthouse. Reichert had come out in the paper and said this is all political and it's a shame, and anybody that has any information with Deidre's case, please contact Wood County. Do not contact Wood County. They are the problem. He is the problem. Tom Reichert needs to get out. He is as much as evil as they are. Because if you know about it, you need to step aside and do what's right. Because he has kids, and you need to do the right thing. And it's pretty much everybody covering up for everybody else. There's a lot of people that know about it, and they're scared to get involved. They're scared to say anything because Wood County is out to watch their neck. They just want to keep it contained, keep it quiet. You know, don't let it get out of hand. It's ridiculous. And if anybody.
Here's what we're going to ask this evening. We're going to ask anyone in that area if you were in the area of HH or Tempest Road and you happen to see a little girl on a turquoise and pink Huffy bicycle, 11-year-old with beautiful brown hair, possibly a two-door silver car. If you happen to see anything in that area or even thought you saw something at the time of this accident, we would ask you to don't contact the county police, don't contact the Vesper police, but to contact us at M&M Missing and Murdered or M&M groupmail@gmail.com, or contact your state police with any information that you might have that would help solve this murder that took place on March the 24th, 1995. And Brandon and David, we would love to have you join us again another time when you've maybe gotten some more information that you could pass along to us or whatever. We'd love to have you come back and join us. And we're about to run out of time here, and I'd like to close with a word of prayer if I can. Our Father in heaven, we thank you so much for these two gentlemen and their families who have worked so hard to bring justice for Deidre, this poor little girl who was willing to stand her own ground, who would not back down, and was loved by everyone, who had a heart of gold and a spirit as well. And Lord, we just pray that you would instill these upon this family, that same spirit, that same heart, and that same determination to stand my ground and not back down, to bring about justice for this little girl, for this daughter, for this sister, for this cousin. And Lord, that you would just search the hearts of those that were involved, and you would just bring upon them a spirit of not being able to hold it in any longer, Lord, and just help them to be able to go to the authorities and share the information they have. And Lord, we just ask that you would continue to encourage this family and bring them about and give them the strength that they need as they continue their search. And may we all be with them. In Jesus' name, amen. We thank you, David and Brandon, for being with us, and we look forward to hearing from you again real soon.
All right. Thank you, guys. Sounds good.